Heyo, Greg Branos for the Coach Speak Index. What is good, everybody? I see you out there grinding fantasy football podcasts in July. You absolute sickos. And refusing to tell your league mates about the Coach Speak Index so you can keep your edge. I get it. It's got to violate some kind of good Samaritan law, but I get it. You're a law-breaking rebel. You're the James Dean of fantasy football. So lean back, get comfortable in your sick-ass red jacket as I break down the NFC West for you today. And we will start with the Arizona Cardinals. Before we get to Kyler Murray, I want to begin with this clip of offensive coordinator Drew Petzing talking about maintaining offensive balance.
Offensive balance do you feel like you have at this point?
In terms of
The receivers, running game, everything that you can do on offense.
Yeah, I think it's funny. Like, a lot of people say the word balance like we need to be 50-50, which I've always thought that was like, that's not the goal of balance. The balance is being whatever I need to be when I need to be it. That could be 80-20, that could be 90-10, or it could be 50-50. But I think certainly, and we were able to do it pretty well towards the end of last season, we could move in and out of what we needed to be based on the situation, based on the opponent. We're going to see here, going into this season, if we can maintain that and hopefully do it at a higher level.
The balance is being whatever I need to be when I need to be it. Love that. Not trying to force anything, just running your offense based on the looks your opponent gives you. Kyler Murray was the QB4 in fantasy points per game in 2020 and 2021. QB7 in 2022, and then QB9 last season, fresh off an ACL tear and in a brand new offensive system. He's going off the board this year as QB7, and I believe that is his floor. This will be Murray's second year in Drew Petzing's offense. The Cardinals went out and got him a stud wide receiver in Marvin Harrison Jr. The offensive line should be a little bit better. Trey McBride is ascending to elite tight end status. The running game is strong. Things are looking up for Kyler Murray and the Arizona offense. If they can get good production out of Michael Wilson, Zay Jones, and or Greg Dortch, they will be cooking with gas. And they have a decent fantasy playoff schedule. At home, week 15 versus the Patriots. On the road, week 16 at Carolina. Then in Los Angeles, week 17 to play the Rams. Kyler Murray is my QB6. That is one spot ahead of consensus. I have him at the top of my second tier of QBs, right ahead of CJ Stroud. Running back. Heading into last season, Jonathan Gannon said he was 100% comfortable with James Conner being the bell cow of Arizona's run game. That ended up being true as Conner averaged 18.1 touches per contest in 2023. I have a couple clips of Gannon from the very end of last season that are going to show you how much they think of James Conner. This first one is Jonathan Gannon on the running back age cliff and James Conner, who will be 29 this season.
29, which doesn't seem very
Young.
at all, but NFL starts to get old. Knowing everything you know about him, the person, the player, physicality, style, how much can he still be doing what he's doing next year, and even beyond that?
Well, I'll take, in my opinion, I don't look too much into the future because it makes me anxious, so I'm worried about Seattle. But here's what I know about him. You want to talk about when you're outside of the white lines, what he does from a conditioning standpoint, from a recovery standpoint. I would call that whole bucket physiotherapeutic standpoint. There's nobody better. So if you think that certain guys start to, fall off because they get a little older, he'd be the one to delay it. I know that.
James Conner had the best season of his career in 2023. He gained at least 10 yards on nearly 15% of his carries. Among running backs with at least 100 rushing attempts, he ranked second in avoided tackle rate behind Jaylen Warren, third in rushing yards over expected. Not too bad for someone who is approaching that age cliff. Here is one more clip of Jonathan Gannon talking about James Conner.
Off the field, how much has James meant to this team and to the coaching staff this year?
It would take too long, Howard. You know what I mean? That much, He, gosh, I can't even say enough about him, truthfully. He's a captain. The leadership that he provides, how he practices, his emotional stability, as I call it, never gets too high, never gets too low. The way he prepares, what he does, not in the building to get himself ready to play. There's no better example of, hey, there's the blueprint of how to be a pro and be successful and make a bunch of plays, help your team win. That's who he is. And then, just from my standpoint, him being a captain, all those captains, but I've picked his brain a lot. He's helped me a lot. How did the messaging get received? How is it interpreted? How is this getting delivered? How is this hitting the players? You know what I mean? He's got a really good handle on all that. He's come up to me with critical feedback. Hey man, like you went too hard there. You weren't hard enough. You know what I mean? I've learned a lot because of his feedback, and obviously the production speaks for itself. He's one of our premier players, and he's been fantastic this year.
They absolutely love James Conner. This clip is going to be General Manager Monty Ossenfort on rookie Trey Benson, who the Cardinals drafted in the 3rd round.
I'm pretty sure I remember Trey Benson at Oregon, and I know I had him this year at Florida State. It was actually a game they almost lost to Boston College, but man, he really stood out, just whether it was watching tape or the games. Is he somebody that you could see? Obviously, you have James Conner, who is terrific and the guy, but is Trey somebody that you could see morphing into a Pro Bowl caliber running back?
Yeah, I think the thing with Trey that stands out is he's a big back, much like James Conner, and so I think Trey fits us from a schematic standpoint in that he's instinctive, he's tough, he's physical, he's got good contact balance, he's able to run through and gain tough yards, and then one thing that stands out about Trey is that when he does have a crease, he has the speed to break it and pop the long run, something that you don't often see in running backs that are his size. So I think he complements James very well. James had a phenomenal year last year. Was really one of our, if not our top offensive players and most consistent players throughout the year. So, we think we ran the ball pretty well last year and really finished strong in that front. And we think that gives us a chance to control the clock, control the pace of the game, and, really just add another back that can complement James and his skill set. We just feel like that puts us in a good position offensively.
I think he complements James very well. This should be James Conner's backfield once again, unless he succumbs to injury, which we've seen happen often. He has not played a full season in his 7-year career. 15, 13, and 13 games in his 3 seasons with Arizona. James Conner is my running back 25. That's 2 spots ahead of consensus. Trey Benson is my running back 35, 4 spots after the market. He's going at the end of the 9th round on Underdog, and I think that is just too high for a handcuff. He should be going at least a round later in the Blake Corum range. Cardinals wide receivers, not much coach speak on Marvin Harrison Jr. thus far. Jonathan Gannon has talked about Harrison's work ethic being so strong that he has to ask the rookie to dial it back so he's not overworking himself. You can view that as good. You can view that as bad. You know, maybe he injures himself from overworking himself. But sounds like they're trying to get a handle on that. Gannon was asked how newly signed Zay Jones fits into the wide receiver room. And here he is.
With, you guys have made a lot of changes in the receiver room, and a lot of the guys you brought in, including Zay, who's talking with us today, have some size. Is that a conscious decision to add those guys?
Not really. It's kind of, we try to add the best players we can. You know, with Zay, you guys will quickly find out he is fits the price of admission here. His football character, the guy is through the roof, extremely smart. He's obviously played at a high level for a good amount of time here. He's done well acclimating in last week, and he's excited to go.
How does he fit in the receiver on the field?
Come compete for all the spots. That's kind of all our guys right now. But he's really a 3-position guy. He can play it all. He's smart enough to play all of it. So we're, you know, the entire team knows right now is kind of a competing phase for their role. And those roles will be defined at the 53. And when we, you know, put together the practice squad, so everyone's kind of in the same boat. But he's played multiple positions through his career, had production at all of them. Like I said, extremely smart, wants to help us win.
The competing phase for the role. Jonathan Gannon on Michael Wilson now.
Does Michael Wilson look different now than how he looked when the season ended?
I would say he's probably tired at the end of the year. He looks very explosive to me. The details, the intricate details of what Drew Terrell's coaching him, he does some things extremely well that Drew Petzing likes to highlight, which is cool. And I won't get too much into it, but Drew called a play yesterday. He thought Mike was going to be aligned at Z, and Marvin was out of there, and Zay was in, so he was lined at X. And he called the play on a gotta have it for Mike. Looks up, Mike's not out there, and Mike's in another position. Kyler goes through his progression, the ball finds Mike in a different position because he won on the route. And it was like, oh, that's not why he even called it, but that was cool to see, you know what I mean? So Mike is a 3-position guy. Like I say, he looks fast and explosive, and he's doing some little things that are pretty cool that make him a tough cover.
Mike is a 3-position guy. I just referred to Zay Jones as a 3-position guy. They like their versatility in Arizona. One more clip of Jonathan Gannon on Michael Wilson taking a jump in year 2.
New additions to the wide receiver room. What does Mike Wilson have to do to make that successful second-year leap in the league?
I mean, kind of everything that we talked about. Marvin just accelerated, you know, so it's always going to come to, you know, I think where you're ultimately evaluated is production on the grass. But how you get to that production on the grass on a daily basis, I think he will take a jump with what he's doing. And, you know, from all the standpoints of what that means, you know, schematic, technique, physical, his health, what's in between his ears, he will take a jump in all of those, you know, buckets, I call them. And that will then, in turn, give him a chance to increase his production and help us win. So I really like where Mike is at. You guys know he's, I mean, as smart as they come, as competitive as they come, works on his craft, works on his game. He's another one. You got to tell him, get off the practice field now, we're done. He's he's going to have a good year.
Does his role change from week to week, do you think, or is he going to be this guy?
No, I mean, his expectation, my expectation, and the team's expectation is him to go help us win games, get open, catch the football, and block when it's a run. So what that looks like week to week, and with all our receivers or tight ends or running backs, it's part about being adaptable. Sometimes he might get 10 targets, sometimes he might get 3, but hopefully his opportunities and when he's in the game, he's impacting winning. And you can do that a lot of different ways.
Sometimes he might get 10 targets. Some games he might get 3. That sounds like a guy who is going to be on the field quite a bit. There's some good, some bad when you look at Michael Wilson's rookie year. He missed 4 games with a shoulder injury and a neck injury. He also had a rough injury history in college, by the way. Starting in week 6 last year, Wilson played at least 83% of snaps in games where he was active. Full-time starter, averaged 5.2 targets per game. Not a ton of production. They played him at different positions, like Jonathan Gannon just talked about. So 3-position guy certainly helps keep him on the field. I'm not necessarily expecting a breakout year 2 where Michael Wilson puts the entire league on notice, but I do believe he can take a leap in the neighborhood of 800 yards and a handful of touchdowns. He's a big guy, superb hands, contested catch ability. It's his second year in this offensive system. He gets a full season with Kyler Murray. And this staff trusted him enough to play him a ton in his rookie year. He's a very solid flyer to bet on in the 15th round of drafts. Marvin Harrison Jr. is my wide receiver 9. That is even with the market because I am a fish, because I am a square. Spread some tartar sauce on me. Place me between 2 buns because I'm a damn filet-o-fish, drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. at the 1-2 turn, just like everybody else. Michael Wilson, wide receiver 76 for me. That is 3 spots ahead of consensus. Greg Dortch, wide receiver 91, 2 spots behind the market. And then Zay Jones is my wide receiver 95. That is 10 spots behind consensus. Tight end. This is offensive coordinator Drew Petzing on Trey McBride.
Is there a level of the pass catching part of his game that he can take it to?
I think so. I think at the end of the day, I'm not going to tell you any single person on our roster has reached their ceiling. And I don't feel like I'm ever going to feel like that as a coach. I don't want them to ever feel like that as players. There's always going to be areas where, hey, we need to improve. We can get better. This is how we're going to get there. I think if you lose that drive, you stop getting better or maintaining your ability. So I certainly feel like he has another level that he can take his game to, and we're going to push him to try to get him there.
Trey McBride didn't start seeing more than 58% of offensive snaps until week 8 of last year after Zach Ertz went down with a quad injury. McBride played 82% of offensive snaps in week 8 versus the Ravens, catching 10 of 14 targets for 95 yards and a score. And the genie stayed out of the bottle for the rest of the season. 8.5 targets and 65.5 yards per game the rest of the way for Trey McBride, who became such an integral part of the Arizona Cardinals offense. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. coming to town presents more upside for McBride than it does downside. Adding stud playmakers alongside other stud playmakers makes for a better offense, a more efficient offense, an offense that will score more touchdowns. Arizona was 21st in offensive touchdowns scored last season. I think that goes up this year. Trey McBride is my tight end 3. That is even with the market. And I kind of like over 750.5 receiving yards for Trey McBride over on Caesars. The Los Angeles Rams. Game management has been a weakness for Rams head coach Sean McVay, but that may change in 2024. After the playoff loss to Detroit, McVay repeatedly expressed remorse for not being aggressive enough on 4th down. And then in February, he hired John Stryker from the Titans to be his coordinator of football strategy to help Los Angeles, quote, win in those margins. So maybe we will see the Rams be a little more aggressive on 4th down this year, and we should see McVay not waste all of his timeouts in the first half, which he said was one of the reasons that they hired John Stryker. Quarterback Matthew Stafford is currently asking the Rams to restructure his contract to give him more guaranteed money. McVay has declined to answer all questions asked about this, electing to keep things in-house. I am not concerned at all about it. I am slightly concerned about the Rams' fantasy playoff schedule, though. Week 15 at San Francisco. Week 16 at the New York Jets. But then week 17, pretty nice matchup, hosting the Arizona Cardinals. Matthew Stafford is my quarterback 18. That is one spot ahead of consensus. Let's get to the good stuff. Los Angeles Rams running backs. The Rams ran the ball more in 2023 than in any other season under Sean McVay. 477 times. And I believe we'll see them run even more this year. McVay belongs to an exclusive class of coaches who stay one step ahead of the rest of the league. He might be the best at innovating and staying ahead of the curve. By the time other coaches catch up, he's already moved on to something new that those coaches will end up adopting in 1 to 3 years. This offseason, Sean McVay and the Rams beefed up their offensive line. The average weight for an NFL offensive lineman is 315 pounds. The average weight for LA's offensive lineman this season is 330 pounds. I think they did it because McVay sees linebackers getting smaller and smaller. Rick Moranis up to his old tricks again. So McVay says, fine, I'm going to build a big, chonky offensive line and good luck stopping the run, which we were already gashing you with last season. Kyron Williams picked up a foot injury during OTAs, and this is what Sean McVay said about it. Kyron's good. He had a little foot issue that we're going to be smart with. He'll be ready to go for training camp. McVay has a 90% reliability rating on injury coach speak. When McVay says there is nothing to be concerned about, there's nothing to be concerned about. I expect Kyron Williams to be ready for training camp, which means that right now is the best time to buy him. Because when training camp opens and he's a full go, his price will shoot up again. Here's Sean McVay talking about rookie running back Blake Corum right after the Rams selected him in the 3rd round.
What Corum brings to the table for you guys?
You know, for me, one of the things that jumped off is there's a lot of traits that reminded me of Kyron Williams. You know, obviously I love Kyron, and he's been so important, and just, the human being, but then also when you just look at the way he works at it, the production and the things that he was able to bring to our offense last year, and even really some of the things that he worked through his rookie year. And I think there's a lot of similarities. Obviously, Kyron will put Blake under his arm and be a great mentor and a kind of a leader, but Ron Gould was really excited about him, Mike LaFleur. I obviously loved his game, and so he's got a bunch of tape to be able to evaluate. He's been a part of an incredibly successful program. He's been the bell cow for them in the midst of the successful runs that they've had the last few years, and so we're really looking forward to getting to work with him.
Sean, in your offense, what's the number one thing a rookie running back has to do to get playing time and to show that they have absorbed what you need them to absorb?
Yeah, I think they've got to earn trust. Consistent production, based on the different situations that come up, through all 3 downs and 4th down. You want to see guys that are productive runners that understand, where they, supposed to set blocks at the point of attack, what's the intent of the play. You want to see guys that compete without the ball. He does a great job of competing without the ball and protection. I think there's some different things that he can do to bring an added element in the pass game. And so I think it's really just the trust, the consistency of what Ron's asking, snap in and snap out. And you've seen a lot of those things that have been on tape for him. And there's a lot of things that you can evaluate that are easier. You see so often a lot of these running backs are accepting runs off the offset gun. He's been playing on, they're a big under center outfit or taking, runs from the pistol, and he's done a great job. You can see he's at his best when his shoulders are square to the line of scrimmage, but they do a good job with a lot of different run schemes that are easy to evaluate, and then you just see the competitive toughness, and then, as games wear on, it seems like that's when he gets better and better. And I just remember even, talking to a bunch of our coaches when the college football playoffs started, and you're watching the impact that he had on the Alabama game. That's a tough defense, back and forth, and then in crunch time in the overtime period, he makes a great run where he's inside, weaves it back out, and is able to finish it, that ultimately ended up being the game-winning play. And so, but he's had stuff like that show up throughout the course of his career.
I think they've got to earn trust to get on the field. That is very Sean McVay. We saw Zach Evans barely touch the field last year because Sean McVay did not trust him. Here is Sean McVay and general manager Les Snead on the pathway for Blake Corum and fellow rookie wide receiver Jordan Whittington to see the field as rookies.
Are Corum and Whittington guys that you could envision if they do the work with, that you can plug in immediately into roles in that offense?
Yeah, I think that's what you hope. When you select these guys, there's a vision. They've got to be able to earn that. But, we talked about Blake a little bit last night. Jordan asked about Jordan Whittington, and he was one of the guys that you received so many texts with. I got a chance to go to Texas to kind of speak a couple weeks ago before the league meetings, and Steve Sarkisian and I have a relationship, and this is a guy that they love. He's played in all 3 spots. He's a core special teams guy. He's made of all the right types of things. I mean, you look at it even when they're trying to go have that game-winning drive against UW, he's making a big slot fade catch down the sideline that puts them in a chance to be able to score and try to be able to advance to a national championship. But the makeup, the things that he's overcome to be in the positions that he's in, the way that he's affected and influenced positive change with the people that he's been around, we're very excited. And he's got some versatility. It sounds like a really smart player that can do a lot of different things, and that's really valuable for us. But that would be the hope, Gary. But, until we get these guys in here and really start working with them, it's hard for me to say. And we got great competition at all those spots.
Gary, you sound concerned about that running back position, learning this playbook.
No, it sounds to me, based on his resume, that you've got a player that you would envision could come in with Kyron and Ronnie. And
I can't say this, Gary, I was joking, but we do take, to come in as a rookie, come in as any player, and absorb what Sean and his group are teaching, and then go execute it. It does take, special, probably, hey, just Mom, Dad, God gave you a pretty good brain to be able to process some info and apply it real quickly on the grass, and also a care factor to continue evolving, because these guys evolve. And so we put a lot of emphasis in on how that player for the most part has a chance to come in and absorb a playbook as a rookie and then go apply it at speeds that they're used to playing, not letting it bog them down.
And I think the challenge always for us too is how do we do that, but how are we becoming better teachers? Where you make the information digestible, that you take out the thinking and allow guys to be able to go play and react fast. But there was a prerequisite in terms of all of these guys have shown a feel for the game. There's instincts and there's certain things that you can evaluate on film, and then also with the vetting, the background, the ability to sit down and talk, to their coaches, or even just talk ball with some of our deep dives with the scouts. And, every single one of these guys was checking the boxes. And, maybe Cardi can talk a little ball with us as well. And hopefully it's just kicking extra points.
All right. This is Sean McVay on June 5th talking about Blake Corum.
In terms of Corum,
Yeah.
what have you seen from him?
I've seen a very mature rookie, Gary. I've seen a guy that is really conscientious. He ended up having a play that he wants back in terms of a blitz pickup today. But I've seen a guy that's continued to progress. Ron Gould does such a great job overall with that group. But great instincts as a runner, good feel in the pass game, great toughness. I think, like I was talking about a little bit earlier with Colby, these running backs, they're a lot easier to evaluate when you get into real game-like settings. But he has definitely, been as advertised through what we can evaluate up to this point. I love his mental makeup, love, the way he handles himself as a person and how locked in and focused he is. And he enjoys competing, and I think that's a consistent theme with a lot of these players on this team.
The mental makeup is so big to Sean McVay. That is definitely one of the keys to Blake Corum seeing the field. June 13th, Sean McVay was asked about rookies who impressed him in minicamp. And on offense, you're never going to guess who he named.
The offensive side, I've been pleased with a lot of guys, but Blake Corum's really stood out. Mature beyond his years. I love the way that he handles himself. I love even more how when there's been a couple things that didn't go the way we wanted, how he responded the next play. The mental toughness that you see from him. Ron Gould's excellent with that room. Even Kyron in his own way has done such a great job of imparting a certain amount of wisdom with them.
All right. Again, that mental makeup to go along with all the physical traits that Sean McVay likes about Blake Corum. Sounds pretty good. How are we feeling out there about how much time Blake Corum is going to see? Are we thinking 50-50 split? Are we thinking Blake Corum takes over this backfield? Got to pump the brakes on you real quick. Here is General Manager Les Snead talking about the reasoning for the Blake Corum pick.
On the offensive side of the ball, we drafted Blake Corum out of Michigan in the 3rd round. Safe to say the Rams have a certain running style that they've loved with Kyron, and how do you think Blake will fit into this current model?
It's a lot of people have said he's very similar. They have a similar play style. They're both. Here's what I do know: they both really, really care about football.
Right.
That's very important on that side of the ball, right? That's a sophisticated side of the ball, and we're relatively advanced veteran offense. So you definitely are going to need to bring a care factor to be able to get up to speed and be able to function and fit right in and keep the thing humming. But it's a tough league. It's a 17-game season plus playoffs. Might go to 18 games one day. So we always felt like we needed to have as many quality runners as possible so we don't just totally run down Kyron and we have one or two or even three guys that can contribute, keep everyone fresh, and let's go and try to impose our will.
Shout out Ricky Hollywood, doing good work for the Rams. So Les Snead says the Blake Corum pick is so we don't just totally run down Kyron. This screams to me that Kyron Williams will still see a healthy workload. LA doesn't want to miss a beat when he needs some snaps off. or when he misses games. So they drafted a similar running back in Blake Corum to recreate Kyren Williams in the aggregate with Kyren Williams. I'm currently expecting something close to a 75-25 or 70-30 split, with Corum possibly siphoning some of the goal line work. If Kyren misses time, Blake Corum becomes an instant fantasy RB1 during that stretch if he has earned Sean McVay's full trust. And if you have any doubts at all about how much Sean McVay values Kyren Williams, I want you to watch and listen to this clip from December 9th of 2023 after the Rams got Kyren Williams back from a 4-week stint on injured reserve.
Kyren, available and playing well in a December, maybe a wet game. What does that do for you?
Well, I think having him in general, we're very different in a positive way when he's out there. I mean, if you just look at it, the energy, the production, the leadership that he provides, I think it enables, Royce to be in a great situation where they're good complements off of one another. But I don't think it's by mistake that we're at our best when he's a part of this offense and when he's playing. It's apparent. You can just look at all the games when he's been there and when he hasn't, and it's very different. And so I'm very grateful for him. I love the approach that he has every single day, and this guy is exactly what we want in Rams.
Like Sean McVay said, such a different offense when Kyren Williams was out, because they didn't have any running backs on the roster who we could trust. They had Zach Evans. They had Ronnie Rivers. They end up bringing Darrell Henderson in off the street, and they ran with Henderson and Royce Freeman, and the offense was not nearly as good. So they wanted another Kyren Williams, which is why they drafted Blake Corum, because, like we heard McVay said, Blake Corum reminded them so much of Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams is my RB9. That is one spot after consensus. Blake Corum is my running back 33. That is 2 spots ahead of the market. There aren't many teams where if the RB1 goes down, we can bank on a particular backup to elevate to a workhorse back. If Derrick Henry gets injured, his workload gets split up amongst multiple Ravens backs. The Rams are one of maybe 9 teams where we can make a very educated guess that the RB2 will see an overwhelming majority of snaps if the starter misses time. They drafted Blake Corum to be Kyren Williams so they can have Kyren Williams on the field when Kyren Williams is not available. We know that Sean McVay does not trust Ronnie Rivers or Zach Evans enough to give them significant snaps. Wide receiver, not much coach speak on the receivers or tight ends. We heard McVay on rookie Jordan Whittington. Otherwise, he's mainly just been talking about the work ethic of guys like Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Puka Nacua is my wide receiver 8. That is 1 spot behind consensus. Cooper Kupp is my wide receiver 26. That is 4 spots behind the market. I'm not doing a full fade on Kupp. I'm just very split on him. He's 31 years old, missed 13 games over the past 2 seasons, showing some signs of decline. Career low 1.78 yards per route run last year. I'm sure the hamstring injury played into that, but this is a technician who relies on his elite route running to win. And when you see the injuries piling up like they have been, I just wonder how long he's going to keep winning. Demarcus Robinson, wide receiver 77 for me. That is even with consensus. He was on the field a lot at the end of 2023 because the Rams played far and away the most 11 personnel in the league last year, 93.1% of the time. That is a wild number. If he stays locked in as the wide receiver 3, he will see a lot of usage. Tight end, Tyler Higbee is recovering from a torn ACL and MCL. So Colby Parkinson is my tight end 29, which is even with the market. The San Francisco 49ers. Everyone's favorite system quarterback. Really looking forward to year 3 of that discourse. Not a bad fantasy playoff schedule for Brock Purdy and the Niners. Home versus the Rams in week 15. At Miami in week 16. And then week 17 hosting the Lions for a Monday night game. That would be a pretty great fantasy sweat. No matter what you think of Purdy, he is surrounded by incredible weapons of yak destruction. 3 of them coming off the board within the first 22 picks of underdog drafts. And Brock Purdy's play caller is one of the league's best in Kyle Shanahan. Nearly 4,300 passing yards last season, along with 31 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. He was in the MVP conversation for much of the year. Brock Purdy is my QB 12. That is one spot ahead of the market. Running back, here is Kyle Shanahan on whether they will reduce Christian McCaffrey's workload.
CMC had 339 touches last year. What do you think of that usage? And this year, do you see that number going up, or do you think it's more likely to go down?
I mean, I don't think it always needs to be that case with all the runs. Like we got guys that can run the ball and stuff. We got to protect Christian from himself. He doesn't like to ever come out, no matter what the situation is. And I do think that's something we could protect him with more. When you are such a threat in the pass game, it's a little bit different, and that's when you get touches from a running back. A lot of times you're the last choice, just everyone's deep and you throw it to a check down. So like halfbacks can get 6 targets in a game without one play called for them, just because they're on check downs a lot. And so how do we feel about those touches? Man, I'm glad he was out there for that check down. That means no one's around and he's getting up the field and he's as good of a threat on a check down as there can be. But if he's just taking the wear and tear with 20 carries and stuff every game, and he's definitely good enough to do that, and he's proved he can stay healthy, but you'd like to take some of that off of him and give it to other guys also.
Kyle Shanahan has a 95% reliability rating on usage and workload coach speak. Super, super strong. I expect that they will lower Christian McCaffrey's rushing workload just a tad. Here is Kyle Shanahan on why San Francisco traded up into the 4th round for running back Isaac Guerendo.
For Isaac Guerendo, what do you like about him?
You asking me? Well, we did. But I love his speed. Yeah, we think he's got a lot of speed. All our backs can run, but it's nice to add one who possibly can run a little bit faster, just for the change of pace and things like that. Like his running style. His running style, I think, is similar to Elijah's and the style that he runs with, and he's built that way, and like the 40 that he has.
Did you want to add speed in general to your offense this offseason?
No, we didn't make a blanket statement like that, but it was we wanted to add some speed to the running back room if we could. But you don't just add that just to add it. It's got to be the right type of runner with the speed. And there's a couple guys in the back and in the draft who had that, and this is the one we really liked in that way.
The Niners staff have been talking about Isaac Guerendo being on a developmental track that doesn't sound like a recipe for fantasy production in his rookie season. In case there's any doubt on who the 49ers RB2 is, I want you to watch this clip from November of 2023 when a beat reporter, who shall not be named, asks Kyle Shanahan why Jordan Mason wasn't getting more work.
He hasn't had to carry in 3 weeks. He's averaging 5.6 yards per carry. What does he need to do to get back in the mix and earn your trust?
Why would that be the issue?
I don't know. I guess it's confusing for a running back who's so efficient to fall out of the mix. I was wondering what he would need to do to get back in it.
Two guys in front of him would have to get hurt to get more. There's three of them. Yeah, when you're playing, I don't trust him or something. That's what I heard in the question, so I'm trying to figure out exactly what your question is.
Okay, we'll try again.
Why is he the third running back?
Yeah, why would you give Mitchell the carries over him when Mitchell's averaging 2-something yards a carry?
Well, we look at more than stats. Mitchell's our number 2 back. He's done some pretty good things here. And JP's our 3. He's been our 2 at times, but that's how most cases are in the NFL.
Spicy. Back and forth there. Man, I like when Kyle Shanahan gets in that mode. It's very funny. Elijah Mitchell is firmly the running back 2 in San Francisco. Christian McCaffrey is my RB1. That is even with the market. Elijah Mitchell, RB 52 for me. That is 4 spots ahead of consensus. Contingent upside out the wazoo if something were to happen to Christian McCaffrey. Jordan Mason is my running back 67. That is 25 spots ahead of the market. Receiver Brandon Ayuk has embroiled himself in a contract dispute with the Niners. He's posting through it, as is customary in these events. It's quite rare that a player actually gets traded or sits out the season when this stuff happens. So as of right now, I still expect him to suit up for San Francisco. Here's Kyle Shanahan on Ricky Pearsall right after they drafted him.
Your system.
He just plays the position real well. I mean, whether he was outside, inside, either receiver, all 3 of the positions. He can separate down the field. He can separate underneath. Got really good hands. Extremely smart. Very well developed. You can tell he's, I guess I'd call it a gym rat or something, because you can just see he's worked on his routes. Put in a lot of hours because you can see it on tape. And there's really nothing he can't do. And he can fit in whatever role based off the other guys.
It was a catch he had in college, I think, against Charlotte, where I guess it showed his contact courage, I guess, as you like to say. Is that a trait that kind of won you guys over to?
Yeah, he's one of the, I mean, just, there's not one play that you see him turn something down. Yeah. I mean, he's going to go over the middle and do everything he can to catch that ball and not worry about anything else. When he's on the sidelines, he's not taking the easy way out. He makes guys tackle him. He's not looking for a place to fall. And when he doesn't have the ball, he plays just as hard when the ball's not in his hands.
Do you see him as an outside receiver in the NFL, Kyle, or do you see him more as a slot?
I see him as both. I mean, he's got the 40 to still get on top of people on the outside, where that starts a little bit. I mean, you just got to have a threat of that to scare guys on a go route. And if you can do that, you can separate on the other routes. But he can get out of his break very well. He's not huge, but he's still got a good body to where he can handle it on any side or at any length of a corner. So, I mean, all of our receivers who play outside, they also play inside. So we kind of want a guy who can do it all.
You always value what receivers do when the ball isn't in their hands. What stood out about when he didn't have the ball in his hands?
That he makes guys tackle him. You watch so many guys who just, they get what's there and they go down. And sometimes people are cool with that and stuff, and sometimes a guy just isn't like that. And you kind of want to not have to ask guys to fight for every yard. You like to, you'd rather have to pull them back. And when you watch a guy who just fights for everything he can do and makes people tackle him, regardless of your make-miss ability, just with your hands and how good they are, so you can transition and get upfield. With fearlessness, you can be good after the catch. But then you watch some of his cutting ability, which makes him a punt return option and things like that. And knowing that he does have the ability to make some guys miss and create edges with his hands, with the kind of his mindset of being fearless, you feel he's going to be good after the catch. And we got some pretty good guys to be in that group in that way.
What a perfect fit for the Niners. Truly. Perfecto. Parfait. And you can see that Shanahan immediately has a vision for Ricky Pearsall in this offense. The big drawback here is that we know that Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel are locked in as the top two receivers, and San Francisco ran 11 personnel at the second lowest rate in the NFL last season, just 38.4% of the time. So not a ton of opportunity if Ayuk and Deebo stay in town and the Niners remain at the bottom of the league in 3 receiver sets. On the other hand, like Kyle Shanahan disciple Mike McDaniel said, some people think that just whatever it was, it will always be. And maybe the Niners dial up 11 personnel more this year because they have yet another big-time yak threat with big-time draft capital attached to them. I'm not banking on that happening, but I don't want to automatically assume that last year's personnel tendencies will just carry over and be the same this season when there are reasons why that could change. Brandon Ayuk is my wide receiver 11. That is 1 spot ahead of consensus. Deebo Samuel, wide receiver 13 for me, 3 spots ahead of the market. Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver 72, 4 spots behind consensus. And then Jacob Cowing, another rookie, wide receiver 108, which is 34 spots ahead of the market. Little scroll down flyer there for you. Tight end, George Kittle is my tight end 7. That is even with consensus. Over 1,000 yards last year, at least 6 touchdowns in each of the past 3 seasons. Has more quiet weeks than you'd like from an elite tight end, but has a lot of just gargantuan weeks that will send your opponents into a spiral of deep depression. The Seattle Seahawks. Let's begin with the big burning question. What is this new Seattle Seahawks offense going to look like? Brand new head coach in Mike McDonald. Brand new offensive coordinator in Ryan Grubb. According to Seahawks players, all we are installing, all the stuff is Washington. And by that, they mean, of course, the Washington Huskies offense, where Ryan Grubb was the offensive coordinator for the last 2 seasons. Many people are assuming that this will be a pass-heavy offense, but indications from Grubb and Mike McDonald are that we'll see a focus on running the ball. This is what McDonald said immediately when he was hired. We're going to be a physical unit. We're going to run the football, and we want to have answers for the quarterback, and we want to keep it consistent for him so we can play fast and play decisive and get the ball to our playmakers. And also said that they want to run and play action on early downs. And then when they're forced to drop back, having consistency in the quarterback's read so he can play fast and be decisive. Here's a clip of Ryan Grubb talking about his vision for the offense.
Of an offense. When you talk about your offense, just kind of big picture, what are the traits you want to see?
Well, I think that grows and evolves every year, right? And you base some of that on the talent that you have and the guys that you have here. And so for us, we're trying to make sure that we find every way to utilize those things. So, when you talk about some of the run-pass balance, you have backs like, Nine and Zach, you're pretty excited about your ability to run the ball. So I think for us, we're trying to melt some things together with some of the things we've done in the past, whether it's a long time ago or even just, the last few years and get the guys to understand that we want to be a physical, dominant team at the same time, have that same explosive, confusing element that people are used to.
Ryan Grubb is highly creative with his run schemes. constantly putting his running backs in advantageous spots. We could see Kenneth Walker rip off a bunch of house calls this year. Zach Charbonnet can also eat in this offense. And beside that standalone value, he has massive contingent value if something were to happen to Walker. But even with this focus on running, we will still see fireworks in the passing game. Grubb is very good at scheming his receivers wide open for explosive plays. A lot of moving parts. He loves to confuse the defense. He knows how to use his playmakers. Everything will come down to the offensive line play this year. Seattle is healthier at the position heading into 2024. They spent a trio of picks on linemen this year. Ryan Grubb is an O-line guy at heart, as Mike McDonald has said. Keeping pressure off of Geno Smith and perfectly executing everything Grubb asks his offensive linemen to do in the run game will be the X factor for this offense. I don't know if there is any other offense in the NFL this year that has a wider range of outcomes than the Seattle Seahawks offense. If the offensive line can't stay healthy or they're just plain bad, that could wreck this entire operation. The run game will be inefficient. Geno Smith won't have time to throw. They won't be able to do the things Ryan Grubb wants to do. If we get average to good offensive line play, this will be a very exciting offense that produces a boatload of touchdowns. Fun fantasy playoff schedule. Home week 15 versus the Packers. Home week 16 versus the Vikings. Then on the road, week 17 against the Bears for the NFC North trifecta. Geno Smith is my quarterback 21. That is 2 spots ahead of the market. Running back. Here is Ryan Grubb talking about using backs in the passing game.
Philosophy on getting running backs involved in the passing game.
Oh, I love doing that. Yeah, we want to make every guy in the field, all 5 of them, as dangerous as possible from any position on the field.
We saw Grubb use his running backs in the passing game a lot when he was the offensive coordinator at Fresno State. Not quite as much when he was at Washington. So it seems very personnel reliant for him. Kenneth Walker didn't catch any balls in college, so he entered the league with this tag of Kenneth Walker can't catch passes, which isn't exactly true. It's not what he's best at, but he can do it fine enough. Zach Charbonnet is also very usable in the pass game. Let's discuss these 2 running backs for a minute, just from an overall picture. This is an entirely new coaching staff. They have no ties to these running backs, except for when these backs played against McDonald and Grubb in college. And I am sure that the coaches remember those performances because Kenneth Walker turned 26 touches into 208 yards and 5 touchdowns in a win over Michigan in 2021 when Mike McDonald was the defensive coordinator there. And then Ryan Grubb watched Zach Charbonnet run rampant over the Huskies in 2021 and 2022, totaling 48 touches for 321 yards in a score in those 2 contests. There is a non-zero chance that Ryan Grubb decides, hey, Zach Charbonnet fits pretty nicely into this offense that I want to run and where I love passing to running backs. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if we see something close to a 50-50 split for this backfield. It may not be the most likely outcome, but Zach Charbonnet's ADP is suggesting he has 0 chance of seeing significant work. Guys like Trey Benson and Blake Corum are being drafted rounds earlier and they don't have the standalone value that Charbonnet offers, while the contingent value is extremely close and may even favor Charbonnet in at least one of these cases. Just like the Seattle offense has a wide range of outcomes, I believe this backfield does as well. Kenneth Walker is my running back 16. That is even with the market. I'm definitely more bullish on him in best ball than I am in redraft. And then Zach Charbonnet, my running back 34. That is 7 spots ahead of consensus. His ADP is completely out of whack, in my opinion. He's going way too late for the upside that he brings to the table. Y'all messed up on this one. Wide receiver. This is from June 14th. Mike McDonald on DK Metcalf.
Metcalf is a guy who obviously has had a lot of productivity. I'm sure he's aware of all the big money that other receivers are getting out there in the NFL. I'm sure he wants to get the ball a lot in this offense. Just take me through how DK looks. First of all, I'm guessing big and extremely muscular, but also how he fits into the picture, what you want to be as a team.
Well, I can tell you this, we want to get DK the ball a lot too, so we share that sentiment for sure, but it feels different now when 14's out there. He is a big, imposing, fast, powerful receiver, man, and we're really excited about it, and I think we've talked about it really since we got here in February, plans for him and Tyler and Jackson and Noah and our backs, and what it kind of look like and how we can move guys around and make DK a moving target for defenses where they have to account for him at all times, but it's going to be hard to find him. And so now that we're here, we're all here in the same building and in camp, and we got a good runway here going into this season to see how this thing's going to manifest itself. But we want to get him the ball as much as possible for sure.
That comment, it's going to be hard to find him, matches up with what we touched on earlier in regard to the way that Ryan Grubb wants to confuse defenses. And maybe you also noticed that McDonald said our backs instead of naming a particular running back. Interesting stuff. May 31st, this is Mike McDonald on Jackson Smith in Jigba.
It was the Jackson Smith and Jigba show. What's it like getting to see him and Spoon go against each other like that and have such a competitive practice this time of year?
Yeah, shoot, it's great. It's great. I mean, JSN's a great player, and expecting great big things out of him. He's had a great offseason, works his tail off. His practice habits are awesome. Movement ability is pretty elite. So I think we got a really cool plan for him, and for him and Spoon, a lot of times they end up going against each other, and it's tough right now. You can't test the ball, but you're trying to be competitive. We're in these red zone periods. There's a delicate balance there, but I thought we handled it great today with staying off the ground and still making some really good plays and executing at a high level. So good day.
I think we've got a really cool plan for him. Here's a clip about 2 weeks later, June 12th, Mike McDonald on JSN again.
What learned or are you relearning about what Jackson does best?
I mean, he gets open, he catches the ball. I mean, it's like he's just a hard cover, man. I mean, just again, he can play outside, inside, and Grubb does a great job of kind of moving guys around and finding some matchups. But his like lower body power and flexibility, and being able to accelerate, and obviously just having great hands and being able to track the ball is pretty impressive.
All right. One more clip, June 13th, the next day, Mike McDonald again on Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Well, I mean, I preface everything with we don't know yet with the tempos. Again, we're not contesting for footballs. Pads aren't on, game plans, the whole thing. But he's a guy that we can focus our offense around, along with other guys. I mean, Tyler Lockett is still a great player. DK Metcalf, phenomenal player. The runners, Noah Fant. I mean, but he's definitely going to be a massive piece of what we're trying to do offensively.
He's definitely going to be a massive piece of what we're trying to do offensively. Well, Mike McDonald has officially done it. He's pulled me back in on JSN, Corleone style. Ex-offensive coordinator Shane Waldron misused JSN last season. His 6.1 yard average depth of target ranked 95th among NFL wide receivers. It's hard to extract your pound of fantasy flesh when you're the screen merchant of Venice, so things can only get better with Ryan Grubb, and it sounds like they have a clear plan and vision on how to effectively deploy him. I like over 725.5 receiving yards for Jackson Smith and Jigba, which you can find on FanDuel. DK Metcalf is my wide receiver 20. That is even with the market. Jackson Smith and Jigba, wide receiver 44 for me. That is 2 spots ahead of consensus. Tyler Lockett, wide receiver 54. That is 3 spots after the market. Tight end, you heard it a little bit in the clips that I just played, but Mike McDonald and Ryan Grubb have consistently name-dropped Noah Fant when they've talked about the offense and the passing game in particular. Colby Parkinson and Will Dissly are gone, and Seattle re-signed Fant to a 2-year, $21 million contract in March with $11.5 million guaranteed. I expect to see healthy usage this season, which could result in a good deal of production in this offense for Noah Fant. He is my tight end 19. That is even with the market. That wraps up the NFC West. You can follow us on Twitter at CoachSpeak. The NFC South will be our next episode, and we'll finish up the entire NFC by July 17th when training camp starts back up. I do want to let you know that I have a birthday coming up in 8 months, and if you'd like to give me an early birthday present, all you have to do is take that finger of yours and click on that like button. Just click on that subscribe button. I'd like to get to 8 billion followers by my birthday. And I know people say, Greg, it's unreasonable for you to expect every person in the world to follow you. And to that I say, we'll see. And I'll see y'all here next time. I hope you have a good one. Take us out, Sarah.